Most people shopping for a compact SUV in 2026 are going to make the exact same mistake. And it's not the mistake you think it is. It's not picking the wrong color or the wrong trim level or missing a factory incentive. The mistake happens 3 steps before any of that. It happens when you walk into a showroom already certain about which car is supposed to win, and you stop asking questions at the exact moment you should be asking the most important ones. I've watched this play out for over 2 decades. A buyer comes in convinced that the Toyota RAV4 is the safe choice, or convinced that the Mazda CX-50 is too premium for their budget, or convinced that the Subaru Outback is just for hikers and ski trips. And every time, without exception, that certainty is the thing that costs them the most money in the long run. Because certainty, when it's built on what you heard from a neighbor or saw in a commercial, is not research.
It's a liability. And today I'm going to strip every one of those assumptions down to the engineering data, the real ownership costs, and the numbers that actually matter when you're about to commit 5 to 10 years and up to $45,000 to a vehicle you're going to drive every single day. We're putting 3 vehicles head to head today, and every one of them is genuinely worth your time to understand before you sign anything. The 2026 Toyota RAV4 is still the best-selling non-truck vehicle in the United States, and there is a very real reason for that. The 2026 Mazda CX-50 is the vehicle that kept pulling me back during my research, the one that surprised me in ways I wasn't expecting when I started. And the third vehicle is the one that almost nobody in mainstream automotive media is giving enough credit to right now. It's the most underrated value proposition in this entire segment for a very specific kind of buyer. I'm going to tell you which one wins on paper, and I'm going to tell you which one wins in your driveway. And I'll tell you right now, those are 2 different answers. Stick with me through all 3. Because the verdict I'm giving at the end is not the one I walked in expecting to give, and the brand that surprised me the most is not the one with the biggest advertising budget or the highest sales volume.
Let's start with the Mazda CX-50, because this is the vehicle that most people in this segment dramatically undersell when they walk into a showroom. The Mazda CX-50 runs a 2.5-litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder in the base and select trims, producing 187 horsepower, with the Mazda CX-50 Turbo stepping that up to a turbocharged 2.5-litre, making 256 horsepower. And that Mazda CX-50 Turbo number matters, because it makes the Mazda CX-50 the most powerful vehicle in today's comparison by a meaningful margin. But raw power is not what makes the CX-50 interesting. What makes it interesting is the platform it sits on. Mazda engineered the CX-50 on a longitudinal engine layout, meaning the engine runs front to back in the engine bay rather than side to side. That sounds like a footnote.
It is not. A longitudinal layout improves weight distribution, makes the all-wheel drive system more naturally balanced, and is the same basic philosophy that BMW and Audi have used in their sport-oriented platforms for decades. Mazda is one of the only mainstream brands building a compact SUV this way. And if you've ever driven a Mazda CX-50 on a winding road and wondered why it feels nothing like a Toyota RAV4 or a Subaru Forester, this is exactly why. The iActive AWD system in the Mazda CX-50 is worth understanding before you compare window stickers. Mazda's system monitors 27 different parameters at 200 times per second, making micro adjustments to torque distribution before any wheel slip occurs. That is not marketing language. That is a fundamentally different philosophy from what most compact SUV AWD systems do, which is to wait for wheel spin and then react. The Mazda CX-50 predicts and prevents rather than detects and corrects. In real-world conditions, on wet pavement, on packed snow, on loose gravel, the difference is felt immediately in how planted and composed the vehicle feels compared to the competition. The Mazda CX-50 also gets Mazda's G-Vectoring Control Plus system, which adjusts engine torque during cornering to improve stability and reduce driver fatigue on longer drives. This is a feature more commonly found in vehicles costing $15,000 to $20,000 more. Fuel economy for the naturally aspirated Mazda CX-50 comes in at around 25 city and 31 highway for AWD models. Real-world owner numbers track closely to those EPA estimates, which is a sign of a well-calibrated system. The Mazda CX-50 Turbo drops slightly due to the extra power, averaging around 24 combined in real-world mixed driving. Here is what the Mazda CX-50 gets gloriously right, and it's something you feel before you can explain it. The interior. Not just the materials, although Mazda's material quality at this price point genuinely shames most of the competition. I'm talking about the design philosophy. The Mazda CX-50 cabin was built around an intentional philosophy of removing everything that doesn't need to be there. The controls that exist are exactly where you expect them to be. The sightlines are clear, the driving position is natural, And when you close the door on a Mazda CX-50, it makes the kind of solid, resonant sound that buyers subconsciously associate with structural rigidity and build quality. The 10.25-inch infotainment screen in the 2026 Mazda CX-50 is operated via a rotary dial rather than touch input while driving, which means your eyes stay on the road and your hands stay on the wheel. Some reviewers call that a limitation. I call it an intelligent design choice that improves safety and reduces distraction, and it deserves far more credit than it gets from media outlets that prefer gesture controls to practical ones. But I have to stop right here and be completely straight with you, because there are two things about the Mazda CX-50 that I would be doing you a disservice not to flag before you sign anything. The first is rear seat space. The Mazda CX-50 was designed on a longer wheelbase than the Mazda CX-5 it replaced in the US lineup, which means the rear seat situation has improved, but it is still not class-leading. If you have tall passengers riding regularly in the back, or if you frequently transport 3 adults, the Toyota RAV4 and the Subaru Outback both offer more rear headroom and legroom at comparable price points. Spend 30 minutes in the back seat with someone your size sitting in front before you commit. The second issue is the price trajectory. The Mazda CX-50 Select starts around $30,000, which is competitive, but by the time you configure a Mazda CX-50 Turbo Premium Plus with the features that justify the platform's capabilities, you're looking at a price point in the low to mid $40,000 range. At that number, you are no longer comparing the Mazda CX-50 to a base Toyota RAV4. You're comparing it to a Toyota RAV4 hybrid, a Subaru Outback Wilderness, or even the lower end of the Lexus range. That comparison is a fundamentally different conversation. And that brings me to the vehicle that is still, by any objective measure, the standard against which everything else in this segment is compared.
The 2026 Toyota RAV4. And I want to be clear about something before I go further, because I know some of you are expecting me to dismiss the Toyota RAV4 as overrated or past its prime. I'm not going to do that, because it would be dishonest. The Toyota RAV4 has earned its position at the top of this segment through something that cannot be manufactured in a marketing campaign. It earned it through a track record, through documented owner experiences across 15 and 20 years of real driving, through Toyota RAV4 taxis in Japan running on original drivetrains at 300,000 miles, through rental fleets in Arizona that have been hammered by thousands of different drivers. The Toyota RAV4 is not a perfect vehicle, but it is one of the most genuinely reliable purchases available in this class. And that reliability has a real dollar value that does not appear on any window sticker.
The 2026 Toyota RAV4 uses Toyota's 2.5-litre naturally aspirated engine producing 203 horsepower, connected to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now I want to address something that causes genuine confusion in the market, specifically around the Toyota RAV4 hybrid. The Toyota RAV4 hybrid uses what Toyota calls an electronically controlled continuously variable transmission. And that name trips people up constantly, because they hear CVT and think of the belt-driven transmissions behind horror stories from other brands. That is not what Toyota is doing. The Toyota RAV4 hybrid system is built around a planetary gear set, a mechanical arrangement of interlocking gears with almost no friction, no belt, no clutch plates that wear out under normal driving. Engineers who study this system describe it as one of the closest things to a self-sustaining drivetrain that mass production has ever achieved. The all-wheel drive on the Toyota RAV4 hybrid uses a completely separate electric motor on the rear axle, with no drive shaft connecting front and rear. That makes the system lighter, more efficient, and genuinely capable in winter conditions. EPA rates the Toyota RAV4 hybrid at 40 combined, and real-world owners are consistently hitting 37 to 39 in mixed driving. That gap between the sticker number and the real number is remarkably small, and that matters. But the Toyota RAV4 has a weakness that a real percentage of owners notice every single day, and it's the kind of thing automotive media tends to minimize. Under hard acceleration, the Toyota RAV4 hybrid's gas engine climbs to a fixed RPM and holds there while the car continues accelerating forward underneath it. The engine note doesn't rise and fall with the vehicle's speed the way a conventional transmission does. Drivers call it the rubber band effect. The Toyota RAV4 keeps moving forward, but the engine sound doesn't move with it. Some owners adjust to this in the first week and never think about it again. Others told me they noticed it every single day for 5 years of ownership. There is no way to know which camp you'll fall into without driving one hard. Get on a highway ramp, press the accelerator firmly, and listen, because how that sounds to you will tell you more about your long-term satisfaction with the Toyota RAV4 than any spec sheet ever will. What the Toyota RAV4 gets right is something I want to acknowledge fully, because it is genuinely remarkable. It just works, every day without drama. The interior has physical climate knobs, real buttons. You want more heat, you turn a knob. For buyers who don't want to navigate touchscreen menus while managing traffic, this is not a small thing. This is a daily quality of life advantage that the Mazda CX-50's dial system partially shares but handles differently. Cargo space on the Toyota RAV4 comes in at 37.5 cubic feet behind the rear seats, approximately 69 with them folded, which is competitive but not class-leading. Resale value is where the Toyota RAV4 truly separates itself from the field. According to Kelley Blue Book data, the Toyota RAV4 consistently holds more of its original value at the 3-year mark than virtually any competitor in this segment. Over 5 years of ownership, that advantage can translate to $3,000 to $5,000 of real money when you trade or sell. That number does not appear on any window sticker, but it is one of the most important numbers in your total ownership math, and almost nobody runs it before they sign. And now we get to the vehicle that generated the most debate when I shared my preliminary research with automotive analysts in my network.
The 2026 Subaru Outback, and I want to explain why it surprised me, because I came into this research expecting to give it a solid score and move on. I walked out with a perspective I didn't have going in. The Subaru Outback sits in a slightly different position than a pure compact SUV. It's longer, it has higher ground clearance, and it's positioned more as a wagon crossover hybrid. But buyers shopping for a compact SUV and buyers shopping for a Subaru Outback overlap significantly. And if you're in the market right now and not cross-shopping the Subaru Outback against the Toyota RAV4 and the Mazda CX-50, you are leaving a serious conversation off your list. The Subaru Outback offers things that neither Toyota nor Mazda can match at its price point. And one of those things is going to matter a great deal to a very specific kind of buyer.
The Subaru Outback is powered by a 2.5-litre boxer 4-cylinder engine, a flat configuration where the pistons move horizontally rather than vertically. That layout lowers the center of gravity compared to conventional vertical engines, which contributes directly to the Subaru Outback's stability on uneven terrain and in emergency maneuvers on the highway. Horsepower comes in at 182, which is the lowest number in today's comparison. But Subaru's engineering story here is not about horsepower. It's about the symmetrical all-wheel drive system, which Subaru has been building and refining since 1972. This is a full-time permanent AWD system, not part-time. Not a system that waits for slip before engaging the rear wheels. All 4 wheels on the Subaru Outback are receiving power at all times, through a drivetrain that is mechanically symmetrical from front to rear axle. In snow, in ice, in mud, on loose dirt roads, the Subaru Outback's AWD has a real-world capability advantage over the on-demand systems in the base Toyota RAV4 and most competitors in this class. Ground clearance on the standard Subaru Outback sits at 8.7 inches, and the Subaru Outback Wilderness Edition pushes that to 9.5 inches. Those numbers put the Subaru Outback in genuine crossover utility territory, not just commuter-friendly marketing language. Here is what the 2026 Subaru Outback gets completely right, and it's the thing nobody in mainstream automotive media is talking about loudly enough right now. Visibility. The Subaru Outback has some of the best driver visibility of any vehicle in this class, with a large greenhouse, thin pillars, and a high seating position that gives you a commanding, clear view of your surroundings in traffic and on narrow roads. For drivers who find parking lots and urban driving increasingly stressful, this is a functional advantage that compounds every single day. The Subaru Outback also offers the largest cargo area in today's comparison, at just under 33 cubic feet behind the rear seats and 75.7 cubic feet with them folded, which is meaningfully better than the Toyota RAV4 for buyers who regularly haul large or awkward items. Subaru's EyeSight driver assistance system has been rated by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety as one of the most effective in the class at actually preventing accidents, not just detecting them. For families, for older buyers, for anyone who spends time on busy highways, that distinction carries real weight. But I owe you the honest picture on the Subaru Outback, and there are 2 things you need to understand before you put it at the top of your list. The first is fuel economy. The 2026 Subaru Outback, with the standard 2.5-litre engine, is EPA rated at approximately 26 city and 33 highway. Those are competitive numbers, but they trail the Toyota RAV4 hybrid by a meaningful margin. Subaru does not currently offer a traditional hybrid version of the Subaru Outback, and if fuel economy is your top priority, that omission is a real limitation. Over 5 years of ownership in a high-mileage situation, the fuel cost difference between a Subaru Outback and a Toyota RAV4 hybrid adds up to real money. The second issue is the turbocharged XT engine. The Subaru Outback XT uses a 2.4-litre turbocharged unit, and while it's faster and more engaging than the standard engine, the long-term dataset at high mileages is shorter and less comprehensive than what exists for the naturally aspirated 2.5-litre. Independent mechanics I've spoken with consistently recommend the standard Subaru Outback 2.5-litre over the Subaru Outback XT if you're planning to drive past 120,000 miles. The turbo version is more fun. The base engine is the safer long-term bet.
So what does this mean when you're standing on 3 different lots with a pen in your hand, ready to make a 10-year commitment? Here is how I see it, broken down by who is actually in this conversation. If your top priority is long-term reliability, resale value, and a drivetrain that will not surprise you before 150,000 miles, the Toyota RAV4 is still the standard in this class. Buy the Toyota RAV4 hybrid if your budget allows it. The documented track record and the real-world fuel economy numbers are arguments that genuinely resist counter-argument. The Toyota RAV4 is for the buyer who wants to stop thinking about their car. If you want the most engaging driving experience in the class, the most sophisticated engineering per dollar, and an interior that punches significantly above its price point, the Mazda CX-50 is a vehicle you owe yourself at least 2 full hours behind the wheel before you decide. Do the highway test.
Do the parking lot test. Do the rear seat test with someone your size. Because the Mazda CX-50 is a vehicle that reveals itself progressively. And first impressions alone will not give you the full picture. And if you drive in winter conditions, if you live somewhere that gets real snow or ice for more than a few weeks a year, if you prioritize carrying capacity, visibility, and the most proven full-time AWD system in this comparison without paying Audi prices, the Subaru Outback deserves a level of serious consideration that the market consistently undervalues. Stick with the standard Subaru Outback 2.5-litre for long-term ownership. The Subaru Outback Wilderness Edition if you actually use the capability it offers. Make your list of what you actually need from this vehicle, not what you think you should want from it, and then test drive all 3 before you let anyone put a pen in your hand. The worst decision you can make in a showroom is the one you didn't test. There is one variable I haven't fully resolved in this comparison, and the data I'm gathering right now is pointing me toward a conclusion I did not expect when I started. We've talked today about how each of these systems performs under normal conditions. But what happens to the Mazda CX-50's turbocharged engine at 90,000 miles in high-altitude driving? What happens to the Subaru Outback's symmetrical AWD in sustained desert heat? And what happens to the Toyota RAV4 hybrid's battery management in northern climates where temperatures hit -20? I'm pulling real data from verified high-mileage owners in extreme conditions right now, and one of the 3 vehicles I've covered today has a pattern I did not see coming. Tell me in the comments, which of these 3 do you own? What climate are you driving in? And what has your real experience been past 50,000 miles? Because what you know from actual ownership is more valuable to this channel than any spec sheet I can find.